Shalom, and welcome everyone, especially you, to the Yehoshua Rose channel here on YouTube. My name is Daniel, and I'd like to do this study today talking about Genesis chapter 18. This is the story of Abraham, where he meets the three angels, and in a lot of Christian teachings, the story goes something like this. That three angels appear to Abraham, and that one of these angels is God, or Jesus, or both. And that this is proved later in the chapter when Abraham starts walking with them as they're heading to Sodom to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities. And it says in the story that the two angels continue on to head to Sodom, and God stays and talks with Abraham. And so this is proof that God is one of these angels, or appeared as one of these angels, or in some circles that this is a prior life Messiah, Jesus, before he was born as a man, in his prior life as either a spirit being who is now manifested in a body, or that he is the God of the Old Testament, or that he's Jehovah himself. So let's just go through the story, and let me ask you to reason together with me, and let's just read what the story says and see if we can find out exactly what the meaning is here. So I'm going to go here now to Genesis chapter 18, and I'd like to focus on these two verses right here, the first two verses. We'll continue on in the story and look at some other parts as we go. And so it says, "And the Lord appeared." And so let's clarify this right now. You see here in my King James Version using Bible.com that this is Lord, capital L, little capital O-R-D. And if you're familiar with the scriptures, you'll know that this is the Tetragrammaton. But let me just prove it anyway. I'll go here now to Strong's Concordance of the same chapter and verse, Genesis chapter 18, verse 1. And it says, "And the Lord," H3068. Many of you should be familiar with this. We'll click on that. And we see that this is the Tetragrammaton right here. And that the transliteration into English is Yahovah. Yahovah. And that this is translated in the Bible 6,510 times as capital L-O-R-D from the Hebrew Tetragrammaton. It's also translated as God 4 times, Yehovah 4 times, in various different ways another time, or another way. The outline of biblical usage: this is Yehovah, the existing one. Yehovah means the existing one, the proper name of the one true God. So, that's who we're talking about in this opening verse. I'm going to go back to Bible.com and we'll read from here. "And the Lord and Yehovah appeared unto him." And we'll see from the context that this is talking about Abraham. This is actually a continuation from chapter 17. Abraham had just been circumcised, or circumcised himself and his household. And let me go there now. But we'll also see, in going back to chapter 17, we'll also see that this is not the first time that Yehovah has appeared to Abraham. And so let's go backwards one chapter to 17. We'll see at the bottom down here that this is where he had the command to circumcise himself and his household. And Abraham was 90 years old and 99, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son. and all the men of his house, born in the house and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. And then begins chapter 18, verse 1. I want to go back also to the top of chapter 17 and show that Jehovah has appeared to Abraham in the past. In verse 1 of chapter 17 here it says, and when Abram was 90 years old and 9, when he was 99, the Lord, capital L-O-R-D, Jehovah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect. And the reason I want to bring this up is to bring up a point, is that, I'm going to go back to chapter 18 now, is that Abraham has met Jehovah before, and he knows what he looks like. And what he doesn't look like, and what you'll notice in chapter 17, is that he doesn't appear as a man. This is the glory of Jehovah, what the Jews call the Shekinah glory. It's sort of a cloud and light, I suppose you could describe it as. Ezekiel saw this glory and described it in chapter 10, I believe, of Ezekiel. It's also described when Solomon dedicated the temple to Jehovah, his glory filled the temple. It's also described in Moses, in Exodus, and the other books of the Torah, where Jehovah appears as the column of smoke by day, the column of cloud by day, and the column of light by night. And this is his Shekinah glory. So let's just go through this now and see exactly what this says. So, and it says, and the Lord, and Jehovah appeared unto him. And remember, Abraham was just circumcised in the last part of 17. So the him here, and the pronouns are very tricky, and you got to follow them here. And Jehovah appeared unto him, being Abraham. Let's go now, just for an exercise in... I have these two verses written here in Google Translate. I just want to add the clarity of who we're talking about here. So I'm going to put the Tetragrammaton here. And we know, and Jehovah appeared unto him, and this would be Abraham. In the plains of Mamre. Go back here now. And Abraham appeared unto him, Abraham, in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. This he here is also talking about Abraham. And he, Abraham, sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he, Abraham again, Abraham, when he saw Jehovah, and Jehovah appeared unto him, as soon as he saw him, he would have done reverence and obeisance to him by bowing his head and closing his eyes, or simply casting his eyes in reverence down. And so he would have been the one lifting his eyes back up. So this is also Abraham. Abraham and Abraham lift up his is also Abraham, his eyes, Abraham, and looked. Abraham looked towards the Shekinah of Jehovah that he saw. And lo, 3 men stood by him. Now this is the most important pronoun of this verse. Him. Who is this talking about? It's not talking about the 3 men, because the 3 men are standing by him. Now consider, if this is Abraham, let's say that it is for 1 second. If this is Abraham, and he lifted up his eyes and saw 3 men standing by him, when he saw them, when Abraham saw them, he ran to meet them. Why would he run to meet 3 men that are standing by him? It's not him. This him is Jehovah. Three men stood by him, Jehovah, and when he, Abraham, saw them, and this would be Jehovah, and the 3 men, he ran to meet them, all of them. from the tent door and bowed himself, Abraham, to the ground in reverence and obeisance to all four of them, Jehovah and the three men. Now, how can I prove this a little bit? This is my interpretation. I believe reason and logic would dictate that this is the only possible interpretation that you can have. But let us go now to the Shabbat website here, shabbat.org. And I've already have chapter 18 pulled up in Genesis. And if you saw the Bible Basics video, you'll know that we can show Rashi's comments here. But I also said there were differences between the King James and the Jewish scriptures here on Shabbat, and I want to show you one of them now. Back in the King James here, it says, "And Jehovah appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, three men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, My Lord," singular. This is not Jehovah. You see that these are lowercase here. This is the Hebrew word Adonai. I won't look it up. You can look it up yourself if you'd like. But let me go back to the Hebrew scriptures. It says here, "and said, My Lord." And we go to the Hebrew scriptures and it says, "and he said, My Lords," plural. And he's talking to everybody in the group. He's actually talking to the three men because he offers them food and drink and a place to rest. Of course, Jehovah is not going to eat and drink. He's a spirit. Now, to further confirm this, I'm going to go to Rashi's comments and hit the show button here, and let's see what these sages, what Rashi says about this. Verse 1, now he was, actually I want to go to verse 2. This is talking about Abraham's circumcision and how Jehovah was being gentle with him because he was still healing. But when we go to verse 2 here, he says, "And behold, three men," and here's the explanation. The three men are the three angels, and these three angels have three missions. Each one has one mission. Let me read it. One, to bring the news of Isaac's birth to Sarah. One to overturn Sodom, and one to heal Abraham. For one angel does not perform two errands. And this is from the sage's writings. So each angel has one mission. And what we'll find as we go through the chapter is that after the three angels were invited to rest and eat and drink, which they did, the one angel did his task. He brought the promise to Sarah. Let me go back to the King James here. He brought, and he said, "And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said," the one angel whose mission it was to give this promise, "I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son." And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. This was his task. When this task was completed, and if you go further, you see that Sarah laughed and Jehovah himself corrects. So this angel, when he completes his task, leaves. That leaves two angels and Jehovah. And the two angels continue on into Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities to do what they were sent to do, and Jehovah himself stays with Abraham. And that's when the conversation down here in 13 begins. Or, I'm sorry, this is the part about Sarah. And then it says, "And the two men, rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on their way. And Jehovah said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do?" And this is where the conversation about Abraham asking Jehovah, if there were righteous men in these cities, would you destroy them? Of which he counted down to 25, which left 5 per city, exactly what he wanted to save: Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters. And that's it. That is the reasonable and only explanation for this chapter and verse. To say that Jesus has a prior life as a spirit being, or a body, of which body would be kind of not necessary given the scripture saying a body has thou prepared me. If this video has been a blessing, please like and share and comment. Thank you.